Alright everyone, I've been thinking a lot about confirmation bias and validation here on YouTube. I think it's something we run into a lot here on the channel, and I wanted to talk today about it because I don't think you guys like my bikes, and I don't like your bikes, and I think that's basically okay. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about when it comes to confirmation bias and validation. A while back, I saw a video pop up on my feed because the YouTube algorithm is so good at recommending videos, right? You guys watch a lot of our videos, right? And the video was a desert sled review. And my gut reaction was to be like, all right, I gotta click on this, I gotta check this out, I gotta make sure that people like this bike, gotta make sure that this random person likes this motorcycle. And I watched the video, kind of skimmed through it while I was on the toilet. Totally not gonna lie to you guys, right? That's what we all do. It's a time-honored tradition to watch YouTube while you're on the toilet. And I was skimming through the video, and I was starting to get really upset. I was like, this guy doesn't know anything about this bike. He doesn't know what it's supposed to be doing. He clearly has no experience riding off-road. And I was starting to get really butthurt that this guy didn't understand the emozione of the Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled, which is a motorcycle that I own. And it dawned on me that I am no better than you guys watching this at home. We all fall victim to these weird like confirmation bias and validation seeking behaviors and these kind of like nasty little habits we have as humans when we watch these videos online. So today I wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit about confirmation bias, validation, and opinions on motorcycles because it's something that I strangely enough have a lot of experience on. And this Tuono back here is gonna come in handy later on in the video. But in case you don't know, this Tuono over here, this 2021 factory, is a giveaway motorcycle. I give motorcycles away here on the channel, you guys are probably familiar with that. But I wanted to let you in on a little secret that I don't think you know of. We have several ways to get entered to win our motorcycles. If you go over to yamanoob.co where you sign up for the Discord and get access to the behind the scenes stuff, that is actually the best way to get entered to win the bikes because when you log in on there and you have your dashboard and everything else, you can actually see all of your entries for the bikes and you can actually max out all of your entries as well. You can social share, you can send us letters per the official rules, you can get merch, you can do everything you need to do to get your entries to max out, but the best way to get your entries is gonna be on yamanoob.co. We promote the merch and the store and everything else because it's a lot of fun, but the best way to do it is get access to the Discord server and sign up on yamanoob.co. So don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Now, let's get into today's video. Alright guys, I've taken some notes here on my phone because I had a lot to say and I didn't want to just blabber on kind of off the hip. So let's start with the definition of confirmation bias. It's probably a term you've heard a lot of on the internet, but as defined by the Oxford Dictionary, it is the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. So, for example, let's say I review a BMW R1250 GS. I might say that I find the motorcycle to be a little bit heavy. I find it a little bit heavy off-road, and I don't really like it for that reason. You might interpret that piece of evidence or fact as, well, that's why it feels so sure-footed at highway speeds, or that's why it's built this certain way, or it's balanced really well for its weight, and blah, blah, blah. We take these bits of information and facts and kind of warp them to fit our own narrative. And we do that throughout our lives, not just with motorcycles, but the scope of today's video is about bikes. And I think this intersects a lot with the validation-seeking behavior I was talking about earlier, where a lot of people tune into a specific model of a video on YouTube, and 9 times out of 10, they probably own that bike or are looking to purchase that bike and they just want their opinions on it validated instead of challenged or thought about or reviewed or approaching it from an objective perspective. Possibly some people are looking at it as a very objective product review, but from a lot of the comments that I've seen, especially on videos like the ZX6 or the Ducati Multistrada, which I'll talk about later in this video as well, it's people seeking some sort of validation for their purchase or their future purchase that they want to make, because motorcycles, for some reason, intersect very deeply with the kind of person you are, right? We like to make jokes here on the channel that, oh, if you own this type of bike, you're this type of person, but a lot of people do fall into that mentality. They might get a Ducati and turn themselves into a Ducati guy or a BMW guy or something like that. And at the end of the day, people are kind of looking to see that if I like their motorcycle, they're seeking that validation, which is really strange because I'm literally just a guy on the internet. If you took away the million subscriber mark, if you took away all the views the videos get, at the end of the day, I am just a really passionate enthusiast of motorcycles who's had the chance to ride a lot of bikes in a lot of different places. But that's all I am. I'm just a dude who has an audience on YouTube, and people like to hear me talk about stuff, which is really cool. And I guess I'm funny or interesting enough to get enough views for people to talk about it. But at the end of the day, I'm just a guy, you know? Like, imagine if you held some dude down the street's opinion in such high valor that you decided to not buy or buy a motorcycle based on that. You would think it's a bit silly, but there's a reason why this happens. Social media kind of warps our perception of people due to a phenomenon called parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are defined as kind of one-way or one-dimensional relationships in which an audience or an observer views someone else, oftentimes, let's say in a YouTube video, for example, day in and day out. I know not many of you watch my videos every single day, but I sure hope that you do. And what happens is, especially in more personal type of vlog material or lifestyle kind of stuff, which isn't exactly what we do here, you might think that you know this person. You might think that you are familiar with them, or you know things about them, or you know what they like or don't like. But in reality, not only do you not know anything about them, they don't know anything about you at all. And I feel bad sometimes because this has happened to me in events and meetups and stuff like that, where I go to hang out with somebody or, you know, try to spend time with somebody, a fan of the channel, and they know a ton about me and the bikes that I own and things that I've done with motorcycling. But I have to kind of play catch up and ask them a lot of questions about them and to figure out where they're at with motorcycles, just to feel like the relationship is a little more balanced in that moment. But it's never going to be balanced because it is a parasocial relationship at the end of the day. But here's the thing. You shouldn't worry or care at all about what I say about motorcycles. If you like a bike and you want to own a bike, it doesn't matter at all what I think about it or say about it. There's many bikes that I love, there's many bikes I dislike. As you guys know, I'm not super fond of a lot of Harleys and BMWs, but if you like Harleys or BMWs, you shouldn't care at all what I think about them. It shouldn't deter you, or you shouldn't get mad at me because I don't like it, or that I'm not confirming your biases, or I'm not validating your opinions on a bike. It doesn't matter at all. There's nothing stopping you from loving your motorcycle, gaining experience on it, and having the time of your life on your chosen steed. Now let's talk a little bit about what I'm calling the fallacy of the perfect motorcycle. A lot of people will DM me, they'll comment me, they'll even at me on Discord or something like that, and they want to basically get my opinion between 2 or 3 different models of bikes. Maybe they've, run the specs and the figures and everything else, and they determined what's going to be the best motorcycle for them to buy. What is the best bike? And there really isn't a best bike. There's just the right bike for the right person, right? So let me give you an example of why this doesn't make sense to ask me, which bike I'd get out of like any 3 motorcycles, or what bike I would buy, right? So let's say you're a beginner rider, you're looking at your Ninja 400s, SP650s, MT-07s, all those kind of crop of normal beginner-ish sport naked bikes, right, and sport bikes. If you turn to me and you ask me, oh, well, Yami, what would you buy? I wouldn't buy any of those bikes. I've been riding for like 8 years and I have 7 motorcycles. Honestly, right now I'd probably pick up like a vintage Mitt CBX because I want 6 carburetors because I hate my life or something like that. I'm in a really weird spot when it comes to motorcycling, and I have no functional use for a Ninja 400 and MT-07. I can ride them and review them and talk about them, but I can't really recommend any of those because I wouldn't ride them. I can kind of get into your brain a little bit and maybe understand where you're coming from and why you'd want to own those bikes, but it doesn't make any sense for me to get any of those. You see where I'm coming from? Because at the end of the day, I don't know where you live. I don't know anything about you. I don't know how old you are. I don't know your experience. I don't know your tolerance for risk. I don't know what kind of riding you want to do. So it's really hard for me to just lob out a recommendation motorcycle, and it's why I usually, if I have to answer a question like that, I will usually just lob out something like a Ninja 400 because it's such a kind of baseline motorcycle that anyone can buy and kind of get started with the sport of motorcycling and then figure out where they're trying to go with it. As a side note, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people DM me or comment a model of a motorcycle and they just say thoughts after it, as if I'm going to have any thoughts about a bike. Like, are you asking me about that bike and what year it is, or like what it is for you? I really don't like that. It doesn't make any sense. Another thing I see a lot of the times is what I call kind of decision paralysis when it comes to purchasing a motorcycle. I see this a lot with younger guys or girls who are looking to get a motorcycle, but they can't quite afford one just yet. And so they're kind of stuck in this little world of kind of languishing between, oh, should I get a Ninja 400 or an R3? Well, the R3 revs higher, but the Ninja 400 is more track ready. And it's like they're going back and forth on these two imaginary decisions, but they're not ready to just make a decision right now. And to that, I would say, until you're ready to buy a bike, until you have the money or you have the loan or you're just lined up and ready to go and pull the trigger, don't really spend a lot of time just like building spreadsheets and worrying about what bike you should be getting, because it ultimately doesn't matter. Your first bike, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be so much fun. You won't even care after like a week of owning it of like the other bike you could have gotten or this and that. You're gonna have a ton of fun. You're not even gonna worry about that. Okay, so we've talked about confirmation bias a little bit, so let's talk about the validation-seeking aspect of this kind of stuff that happens online. So bikes do different things for different people. That much should be apparent. If you're looking for like speed and thrills on track, you're probably not looking at something like a KLR 650. Likewise, if you're looking, for something that can do long distance, it can hit up some fire roads or some gravel roads, you probably wouldn't be looking at a brand new R1M or something like that. So when you review and ride as many bikes as I do, in 2021 I rode 57 different motorcycles. What you have to do is you have to establish a baseline for what the motorcycle is trying to be. Is it trying to be a touring machine? Is it trying to be a sport bike? Is it trying to be a dual sport? Like what is the category that it's trying to fit in? And then from there, you can kind of ascertain whether it's successful or not as successful in that defined category. It's why a ton of people got really angry at me when I made my Ducati Multistrada V4 review, was because I felt like the motorcycle was pitched as a very off-road focused, like do everything amazing bike. And I just really didn't feel like it was much of an off-roader, and it was kind of a pretender motorcycle. It's not a bad bike, but I just felt like it didn't really fit the bill for what Ducati was trying to sell it for, and I just didn't want to mince words on it. But a lot of people got really mad at me because they bought Multistrada V4s, and they think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they were like, I can't believe this guy I watch on YouTube doesn't like the bike that I bought. But when you think about that, that's ridiculous. I'm just a dude. It's crazy. But there are times when a bike meets its intended criteria, but it has like quirks or failures or some sort of charm about it that, in my opinion, elevates it beyond the category and makes it a truly awesome and cool motorcycle, in my opinion. So let's take the Kawasaki ZH2, for example. It's one of my favorite street sport motorcycles that I've ridden probably ever. If you look at the ZH2 versus the Tuono, which is a competitor, they're priced about the same, make almost about the same amount of power, designed to do basically the same thing. The Tuono is basically better in every single way. It's lighter, it handles better, it's got better suspension on it, the frame is a proper superbike frame, it's more track ready, it makes an amazing sound, it handles beautifully. In almost every way, the Tuono is a better motorcycle. But I'd still rather own a ZH2 because the ZH2 has a quirk and a quality about it that just, you can't really get that from anything else. It's a supercharged street motorcycle, and it's absolutely bananas to ride. And I didn't care that it drug all its pegs at the track. I didn't care that on the side of the tire it's nowhere near as good as the Tuono. It's heavier than the Tuono. None of that mattered to me because when I was on the ZH2, everything felt right. It just felt good and correct and right, and you can't really explain certain things about that. And then that begs the question, does that mean that everyone looking at a Tuono should get a ZH2 because Yami Noob said so on the internet? Of course not, right? Like, you should get the bike that speaks to you is what I'm saying. And if a Tuono speaks to you, which I can certainly understand that it's an amazing motorcycle, and I like this bike a whole lot, you should get one. But you should ride as many bikes as possible to see and understand what speaks to you. And if at the end of the day, it happens to be a 680-pound Harley that doesn't do anything particularly well, that's fine too, because that's the bike that spoke to you. And so at the end of the day, if you don't like my motorcycle and I don't like your motorcycle, none of it actually matters, because we're all on two wheels and hopefully all having a good time, because that's what we come to motorcycling for. We come to motorcycling because we want to have a good time with it, want to have fun, and it's amazing that these things even exist, let alone exist to the degree of specification that they have nowadays and specialization that exists now. It's an amazing time to be a motorcyclist, and whatever you end up riding, whether it's some old air-cooled BMW, a hyper-fast 2.0 like this, or some bop-around bike like a WR250, I'm gonna love you no matter what, even if I don't love your bike. Catch you in the next one. See you later. All right, look, you don't have to lie to me. If you had time for one Yammanu video all the way to the end, you probably have time for another one. You should probably just click this link and watch the video right over here. I promise it's gonna be good. You won't regret it. Seriously, you should just click it. I'm sure it's good. We only make good stuff around here. You should just watch it. Why are you still here?